way is productivity, and the work rules that we're asking for are most of the close to $100 million concession that we're asking for. In other words, the difference of 17% and 22% is $10 million, and we're really asking for $100 million. So the fact that we've come down 5% there, and I think all along we really would have come down to 17% if we could put a deal on the table, isn't the meaningful thing. We understand that the flight attendants have a certain standard of living, and that you can't just ask that much out of a wage concession. But what we need and must have are productivity. And this extra 2 weeks, 2 hours per week, we don't think is that much, and we feel we need it. And we cannot compete. We cannot compete without this. And
you've hired 1,500 or so new flight attendants, as well as adding 1,500 supervisors. Will they keep their jobs if you make a settlement with the union?
Absolutely. I've given my word, and that's very important to me. I've given my word to the new hires that they will not be replaced.
What about the people who are on strike now? Did they all get their jobs back?
Well, they're on strike. What do you mean, did they get?
If you reach a settlement, will the 6,000 flight attendants who are on strike be re-employed by TWA?
We have made this clear. We have made this clear, and I told Ms. Frankovich throughout the last month that I felt that she's leading her people over a cliff. That it's very important that she understand, and we've told the flight attendants this, that they may not all get their jobs back, because we will not replace the new hirees. We like our flight attendants. We appreciate that they worked hard, and we hope that we could reach a settlement. We've tried very hard to do so. But we must have these concessions if we are going to live at TWA as a viable entity.
How many flight attendants do you need at TWA? You've been operating on 6,000. How many do you need?
Well, with the concessions, with the new work rules, at TWA we need, at peak season, about 5,000. And right now, we need about 3,500. Now, I know that confuses you a little bit, but at this point, because now we're a summer airline, so at this point, we have people on furlough, people on leaves, and so we were operating the airline with about 4,500. But with the new work rules, we save about 1,000. So we need 3,500 people now, 5,000 people with in the peak season. We have hired close to 1,800 new hirees, so that means that in peak season we need 5,000, so we need about 3,000 more.
What did you mean yesterday when you told the Washington Post you might consider breaking up or selling the airline?
Well, I've been saying that, I've said that before, and I'll say it again. I would love to see TWA flourish. It is very, we've made an important investment here. I've done everything I can to keep TWA viable. We went out and borrowed $600 million. It was difficult to borrow that. I put my reputation on the line doing that. And it's very important for me to see it viable. But also extremely important to me that I'm not going to let the people who loan me money down. I'm not going to let my shareholders down. I being one of the principal shareholders, I don't want to let myself down. So what I'm saying is that I'm not going to sit here and see TWA bleed to death. And that is what will happen if we don't get these concessions. There's no question. And even if we do get the concessions, it's still a difficult row to hoe out there. We're in a very competitive environment. Texas Air is taking over Easton, and that is going to put tremendous pressure to cut costs in the industry. People's Express flies against us in 22% of our routes. We are in a very competitive area, and we must have these concessions. Now, I'm saying this, that TWA is a very valuable property. We have these transatlantic routes that are worth a tremendous amount. We have the PAR system. We now have a very good domestic hub in St. Louis with Ozark and us merging. And if need be, if we can't get these concessions and can't make bottom line money, we'll have to break it up. And that's why I've been telling Ms. Frankovich this is a no-win situation. Because even if the flight attendants possibly could win this, we don't think they will at all, but even if they possibly could, with the help of the mechanics, that would be the only way they could, they still lose, because then I would be forced to break up the airline.
Okay, we'll move on. Thank you. Jim?
Yes, the other side of the dispute now from Victoria Frankovich, president of the TWA Flight Attendants Union. Ms. Frankovich, are you leading your people over the cliff?
Well, that certainly is not our intention. What we are attempting to do is protect ourselves from a totally unreasonable and outrageous demand.
Why is it an unreasonable demand?
We offered a 15% wage cut. That 15% cut is comparable to what the other employees on this property who are in the same wage bracket as we were forced to do. In addition to that, we have offered a $12,000 a year starting salary. And when we get into the area of productivities, in the final hours of our countdown prior to our strike, we put a $20 million additional offer of increased productivity on the table. And that's composed of such things as an offer on our part to work an additional 5 hours a month. I think there's a common misconception about the kind of work that flight attendants do. In order for us to earn the money that we make now, we are away from home about 240 hours a month. And it takes us that amount of time to be in the air 70 to 75 hours during the month. The additional work rule changes that we've offered at this point would keep us away from home 260 hours a month for a total of 80 hours in the air. Now, that is already a tremendous increase, and it's already $20 million more in concessions than what was made by the people on the ground, the agents, by the cooks, by the janitors, by the mechanics, and by the other ground people who are paid comparably to us.
Well, what do you say to Mr. Icahn's claim that he needs $100 million in concessions on work rules, and that would include 2 hours per week more, I guess, than what you all, I don't know if that's more than what you're offering, but 2 hours, he needs 2 more hours work a week from flight attendants. It would amount to $100 million more. He says he has to have that or the airline cannot make it.
Well, I have a couple responses to that. The first thing is airline analysts have agreed with Mr. Icahn when he said that he needed somewhere in the vicinity of $300 million in employee concessions to turn this airline around. To date, he has $275 million in employee concessions in place. Our offer is $50 million, which would bring the total employee concession up to $325 million. We have satisfied what he set as the goal for turning this carrier around, and what the industry analyst agreed with as the goal. And when we get back to the question of what he really wants from us in productivity, he's thrown around this figure 2 hours of extra work a week. I think you should understand we've already offered 5 hours a month, and that 5 hours a month is worth $20 million. There is a tremendous difference between what he's demanding and what we're offering. As I mentioned before, we work 240 hours a month right now. His demand would cause us to work 320 hours a month. It's totally unacceptable. And one of the problems there is the more hours you try to squeeze in during the day and the less rest, which is exactly what these things amount to, the more difficult it is for us to be able to react quickly in the event of an emergency, which is, in fact, our primary responsibility, the responsibility of safety to our passengers.
What do you take his comments seriously about his willingness to sell the airline or to sell it off by piece by piece? Do you think that's a real threat?
Certainly is a concern. That is a reaction of a corporate raider and not a manager of an airline. The problem for us is we are in a strike that is not of our making. We want an agreement. And because we won an agreement, we offered the additional amount of money, the additional amount of work rules, the additional amount of productivity that was not demanded of other employees.
Why do you think he singled you out, if he did, in fact, single you out?
The only thing that we can conclude, the facts really speak for themselves. Our offer is far and away greater than that demanded by other employees who are comparably paid. I can only conclude that he believes that as he's said to me in conversations, we are second incomes, that we are women who, in fact, he did not anticipate would strike, that we are not breadwinners, and that, in fact, we would come up with the additional amount of money that he's demanding, not based on a comparison with the industry, not based on the other employees in the industry, but just based on his conclusion that he could get that money from us.
Thank you, Robin.
Is that all right, Mr. Icahn? You think they're not breadwinners, they're second incomes, and because they're women, you can force them to the wall?
You know, I hate to dignify that. I've been hearing that now for the last month. I never said that, and I hate to even dignify it with a response, except to say that I was brought up in a family where my father was retired at an early age. My mother was a school teacher, and she basically supported the family. So I understand what it is for a woman to work, and it's ludicrous to keep bringing this up.
He says it's ludicrous to bring that up.
It would be ludicrous if it weren't a reality. I can conclude nothing else. I've received no response but that makes any sense. Why are we being asked to give a disproportionate share of the burden?
Why?
They're not being asked to give a disproportionate share. That's the whole thing here. The machinists are working right now at pretty much market rates. The pilots are working pretty much at market rates. They've given 34% up. Right now, in the industry, you cannot rig a market, and this is really what IFRA is trying to do. It's almost like what OPEC did with oil. You can, in the industry...
IFRA is the union, the flight attendants.
Yeah, the flight attendant union. You can hire. The market is that I have 4,000 applicants for these jobs at $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year. The average they pay now to a flight attendant is $35,000. I must compete against other airlines that keep hiring people at $12,000 a year. Now, I like to think TWA does a great job, and we've gotten great reviews. We've gotten great reviews on these new flight attendants. People have called up and said they love them. And what I like to think is TWA does a great job, and people like to fly us. But there's no reason somebody's going to fly us against another airline. Why should they fly TWA unless we can also compete in cost to the passengers?
What about that point, that in the hard, cruel world of airline deregulation, Mr. Icahn can hire flight attendants for $12,000, and other airlines are flying with flight attendants for $12,000 a year?
Well, that is exactly the reason that we've offered a $12,000 starting salary. And we, in fact, have challenged Mr. Icahn that we will, in fact, make our contract competitive with the same carriers that the pilots agreement is competitive with, and the same carriers that the mechanics agreement is competitive with.
Now, those are not the low-rate carriers. Those are...
It is not Continental.
No.
Those are the carriers in the industry with whom we are comparable. United, American, Northwest, Delta.
But Ms. Frankovich has not answered the question. The question is, that you asked her was, how do I compete now? She says, well, I'll let you hire new ones for $1,000 a month, but what about the 6,000 people that I'm paying $35,000? They're not leaving.
But her point is that you asked the pilots to take wages that were comparable to some of the leading carriers and the machinists, but you're asking them to take wages that are comparable with the least expensive airline, say Continental.
No, well, first of all, the pilots gave 34% by now with the work rules. Secondly, and this is a sore point, I made a deal on August 5th with the pilots and the machinists. Ms. Frankovich was asked to come to that meeting. At that point, we could have made a deal and worked everything out, and at that point, I could have got my financing cheaper if Ms. Frankovich had come to the meeting. If she did not come, because she had to go to a party in California. Both I, the machinist begged her to come, and even the pilots told her to come. This was the last meeting we had.
Did you have a chance to make a deal earlier that you didn't take?
Before the infamous weekend that Mr. Icahn chooses to keep using as his excuse for this disproportionate demand from us, I offered 15%, which is the exact same compromise made by the machinist, and it was rejected by Mr. Icahn as it is today.
Mr. Icahn, what about Ms. Frankovich's point that you've said you needed 300 millions in reduced costs, that you had achieved 270. They have now offered 50, which brings the total to 320. That you're past your goal if you accepted what they're offering.
Yeah, but that's not my goal anymore. That was a goal.
Oh, you've changed your goal.
I certainly changed it. In August 5th, when I made this deal, I can tell you now categorically, knowing the situation, the industry has changed a great deal, especially for TWA. Terrorism has forced us to take down a lot of flights in Southern Europe, and while we are flying, while we have gotten good domestic passenger bookings, it is off in Europe. And not only that, but with fare wars and what have you, we have now looked at the situation, and 300 million is not the goal anymore.
What is the goal now?
The goal, we have to cut costs, I'd say 450 to 500 million for this company to exist. the deal we made in August 5th would not be made today.
Are
with
the
the
flight
same people.
attendants going to make all that up?
No, they're not going to make it all
So
up.
you'll be going back to the pilots and the machinists?
We have already spoken to the pilots concerning these work rules, and that's why we've gotten some very good work rule concessions from the pilots over and above what they've given. We have done a lot of other things. The Ozark merger is going to help us. There are things that are going to help us, but we are cutting costs throughout the whole company.
Ms. Frankovich, you say that this is absolutely unacceptable to be asked to work 320 hours a week, which is what in effect. You say, I beg your pardon, you say you're not going any further in your offer. You open talks tomorrow, the first actual negotiations in the strike. Where's it going to go?
Well,
Is there no more give on your side?
We will be prepared to negotiate, of course. The difficulty in our posture is that we have gone beyond the limits that are possible for us. It's going to be very, very difficult for us. We're going to explore every possible alternative. But I think the point that you last hit on is the source of our greatest problem. If, in fact, Mr. Icahn needs more than his original goal of $300 million, not only should our additional $25 million over that goal have satisfied that problem, but we should now have a deal, and if we're going to go back later with the mechanics and with the pilots and search for new additional monies when those monies become necessary, then let's do that equally and fairly. We should not be required to give more than our fair share.
But what Ms. Frankovich doesn't understand is simply this. There's two factors here. Number one, the machinists and the pilots, for that matter, are working fairly close to the market rate of the other airlines. Number two, the deal I made with the pilots and the machinists was a deal that was done. It's water under the bridge. A lot of deals are done. If I had to do that deal again today, I wouldn't do it. It was done August 5th. Ms. Frankovich had a chance to be in that, and being at that meeting. It was a 28-hour meeting, and she went to a party. So that's done. Plus the fact that it's not disproportionate anyway.
What about tomorrow? We just have a few seconds. She says she's ready to negotiate. Are you ready to negotiate tomorrow?
The facts are what is. We cannot give any more. We must have these concessions to exist. There is no question about it.
We have to, Mr. Icahn, Ms. Frankovich, we have to leave it there. Thank you.
$1,500 treadmill, regularly $9.90.
On CNN, we're going to delve into the major airline strike confronting this nation. TWA is on strike. Our guests are Carl Icahn, the chairman of the board of TWA, and Vicki Frankovich, the president of the International Federation of Flight Attendants. I'll be the referee, and we'll take your phone calls as well. The TWA strike is next on Larry King Live, right here on CNN.
Larry King Live is brought
Of TWA's flights. And if other employees refuse to cross their picket lines, airline chairman Carl Icahn could be forced to sell the company. Icahn and the head of the Flight Attendants Union confront each other tonight. Now, here's Larry King.
First, let me bring you up to date. The flight attendants' strike against TWA is now in its 5th day. Tomorrow, the two parties meet in Philadelphia with a federal mediator. The Independent Federation of Flight Attendants struck at 12:01 Eastern Standard Time on Friday over a new labor contract. Contract called for salary cuts of 22% and an increase in the work week by 2 hours weekly. The Independent Federation of Flight Attendants had agreed to a 15% salary cut, but not to the work week extension. About 10,000 International Association of Machinists had refused to cross the picket lines. TWA went to court to get a preliminary injunction against that action and won in court today. The striking flight attendants have been replaced by 1,500 newly trained recruits and 1,500 other non-union employees. Mr. Icahn, it's reported, also has said that TWA will be flying 100% of its flights next week. With us from our studios in New York are Carl Icahn, chairman of the board of TWA, and Vicki Frankovich, president of the Independent Federation of Flight Attendants. We thank them both for coming, and we'll be taking your phone calls as well at 202-898-7600. Carl, I'll start with you. I spoke to some mediation and negotiation experts today who questioned why you're doing this. Why are you appearing here? Why are you negotiating in the open, which is one of the first rules not to do in negotiations?
Well, I'd like the public to get a fair view of what's happening. I just don't want it to be one-sided media. I know Ms. Frankovich has been on a few TV shows, and I thought it would be a good idea for me to get my point of view across also.
Would you rather both be behind closed doors? Would you rather be?
Well, I think the way to settle these things is is in private, but I believe that we're certainly in the right, and I'm happy to be here to express my views.
Also, when you're the head honcho, so to speak, and you're out in front negotiating, isn't one of the ploys of negotiation the ability for one to say, I'll check back with the Home Office, and you're the Home Office?
Well, I've done quite a bit of negotiating in the last several years, and I've negotiated the deals with the IAM and with the Alpha agreements, and I think they were good agreements, and I think better than TWA has ever gotten before, and I am not afraid to negotiate, and I don't think I have to use the excuse that we have to run to somebody else. I think my views are well known and concerning what we need. And we must have an agreement, the agreement that asks for the concessions that we're asking for.
Vicki,
If we don't get those concessions, we will perish. I mean, it's as simple as that.
Vicki, why did you go so public?
Larry, I wish we had an agreement, and if we had an agreement, I wouldn't be here tonight. We have gone public because we are seeking the support of the public in our strike. We want people not to fly on our airline during this fight. We'd like them to return afterwards, but not now.
Or do you think that helps settle it, though?
Well, I'm hopeful that it will. I'm hopeful that the pressure on the corporation, the drop in business, will immediately bring some reason to the table.
Why not an approach, Vicki, of instead of me against him, both of us against the problem?
I think, in fact, the position we've already taken attempted that approach. We, in fact, already offered a 15% cut in wage, and in the final hours of our negotiations, in a supreme effort to try to reach an agreement, we offered to increase our productivity, which is a euphemistic way to say we offered to work more hours, by $20 million. So our total package offer in the final hours was $50 million, which far and away exceeds the agreements reached with the other comparably paid employees on the property.
Carl, it doesn't appear that you're that far apart.
Oh, that's incorrect. We are very, very far apart.
Carl, do you agree with that?
Yes, we're very far apart.
Do you have any hopes in the next few days in Philadelphia? Carl? Are you hopeful?
That this can be settled in Philadelphia in the next few days? I don't think it can.
Vicki?
I am hopeful, but it's my understanding that Mr. Icahn will not be showing up in Philadelphia, and I think that does make it very difficult to reach a settlement.
That true, Carl?
That's true. I'm not going to be in Philadelphia.
Why?
I have expressed my views on this. I've expressed my views for months on this, and what we have asked for is what we need. We have gone down to 17% from 22%. We are still, it's true, asking for about $100 million. So we have, coming down in the wage concessions, I felt was important because I do understand that a lot of the flight attendants live at a certain level, and it would be a hardship if you cut their incomes. But so we did come down as far as income goes. But we feel that we are not asking too much. When we ask for 2 hours more per week, we are asking for productivity, as Ms. Frankovich says, harder work. And everybody else has given in this airline. Everybody else has made sacrifices. And a lot of flight attendants do other things. That's nothing wrong with that. Some go to college and what have you, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at this time, when our airline is suffering, when our airline is on the brink of disaster, we must have these concessions. And we must have them. We're asking for harder work.
All right, to the layman, though, Vicki, now, all right, would you, Vicki, maybe we could settle this part here. Would you take the 17%?
Larry, the problem that we're facing is that we've already offered a 15% pay cut, which is $5,000 per employee, and that matches the other employees on this property. And we exceeded that offer by trying to deal with Mr. Icahn's demand for increased productivity. When he throws out the figure that says, all we need is 2 extra hours a week, what he hides from you is the fact that we already offered at the table 5 extra hours a month.
Well, that's only down to a 3-hour difference now.
But let me
You've
tell you the
offered
real
5,
problem.
yeah.
The problem right now for us, because it's up to Mr. Icahn to explain his problem to you. Our problem is this. Flight attendant currently works 240 hours a month in order to achieve 70 to 75 hours worth of in-air flight time. Mr. Icahn is demanding that we increase our hours each month to 320 hours to achieve 85 or more flight hours. We compromised and offered to increase our hours to 280 hours a month. That's almost 70 hours a week. We can't go any further. We would intend to try to do our best to find another approach so as to reach a negotiated settlement here.
Carl, what was
very difficult.
Carl, what was wrong with that idea?
What's wrong with it is simply this, that there's one irrefutable fact here. What is. And what is that other airlines that we compete with have flight attendants working at $1,000 a month, or $12,000 a year. We pay $35,000 a year. We must compete with these other airlines. We fly the same routes as the other airlines. I mean, we like to think TWA is great, and it is great, and we have a whole new enthusiasm at the company now. We've taken over Ozark. We're doing a lot of things. But still, someone who flies competitively on whatever airline is going to give them the best price, by and large. And when we have to compete with somebody that's flying flight attendants at $12,000 a year, and we're paying $35,000 a year, you don't have to be Einstein to understand that we cannot exist on that basis.
Why did you...
We are competing with another airline that has a better deal productivity-wise and wage-wise than we do. And then Ms. Frankovich keeps saying, well, we can't give it to you. But the other airlines have it. And
Larry,
we must also
can I jump in
have
here,
it.
please? I have to say, it must be noted that we have offered a new higher starting salary of $12,000 a year. So in response to Mr. Icahn's demand, he will have that wage if he makes this settlement agreement with us. And as to the allegation that we make $35,000 a year, I think you need to understand, once the 15% wage cut is put in place that we're offering, our wage after 12 years of service with this corporation will be $25,000 a year. Any money that we earn over that is solely because of the overtime that is mandated by this corporation.
Carl, why, if this is the situation, why did you buy this airline?
Well, wait. I'd like to just address myself to some of those points before I go into why I bought the airline. The points that Ms. Frankovich is talking about is that, to begin with, when we talk first of overtime, that's another thing that is a thorn in our side, the feather bedding that exists. Right now, we have reserves, but the reserves don't fly because we have in our agreement, the old productivity agreement we have, that any flight attendant that wants to do overtime can take overtime. So what we have are a lot of flight attendants flying overtime, while a lot of people are paid in reserves that don't do anything. I mean, that is what's been going on. But more importantly, when we're paying, even with a 15% cut, $25,000 or $28,000, what really is going on, that we're paying somebody $28,000 for doing the same job that another airline has, and are paying $12,000. And when Ms. Frankovich talks about the fact that she is allowing us to hire new people at $12,000, that would be fine, but we already have 6,500 people that we're paying $35,000 or $30,000 to. So what good does it do us that now we can hire new people for $12,000 a year when we don't need them at this point if we have all the 6,500 making the higher wage?
The good it does you is the people you're competing with, Delta, Northwest, United, American, have the same wage scale that we're talking about.
But you're not mentioning Continental, you're not mentioning Peoples, you're not mentioning Eastern, you're not mentioning Pan Am. Those are the people we are competing. No, but they all...
In the same way, you didn't require the mechanics or the pilots or the other people on this property to come down to the Continental wage level.
You know, that seems to me to be the ultimate arrogance. I mean, when you keep talking about not requiring, in August, when I did acquire this airline, and to answer your question, Larry, why I acquired it in August, it was a much better situation than it is today. In August, I made a deal with the mechanics, and I made a deal with the pilots that I wouldn't have made today. That deal I made, we invited Ms. Frankovich to come to the table, and she went to a party. And the ultimate irony of this is that now she says, well, why did you make the deal with them and not with me? At that time, if she felt that she might be left out, that she's accusing me of leaving her out, then she certainly let her constituency down tremendously by not showing up to make the deal. In other words, if I was somebody that represented a group that might be left out, because, which is she accusing me of doing, if I represented a group that might be left out, I certainly would want to be at the meeting that was being held where I might be left out of. Now, Ms. Frankovich might have a point if indeed we did not invite her to it. But we asked her to come to that meeting. And at that point, if she had made that deal, I could have got my financing cheaper, and we could have had a deal at that point. Now, she says, let me have the deal that you made in August 5th when I wasn't there because I went to a party.
I'll ask
now
her.
that deal's not on the table because we have so many other problems.
I'll ask her to comment. Are you saying that today you would not make this deal for this airline?
No, I'm saying today, the deal I made with Alpha and the machinists, I would not make, because today, this airline, at this point, we're having problems. I mean, to begin with, the projected earnings that we were told about when we made the deal in August, the projected earnings did not come through. We lost $193 million for the year. We didn't expect to lose more than, I was told that we weren't going to lose more than about $110 million. We, for the first quarter, are going to lose well over $125 million. I mean, I did not know. We did not know about the fare wars. We didn't know about the terrorism. We didn't know about the overcapacity that's coming on stream and the cutthroat competition. I'm saying that I think TWA is still an undervalued asset.
I want to get a break here. One question for Vicki, one for Carl, then we'll take some calls interspersed. Vicki, why didn't you go to that meeting, he asked?
Larry, I do want to answer that question, and I want to answer the question of the company's current financial position.
Why didn't you go to the meeting?
Okay. I met with Carl Icahn before he signed this deal with the mechanics on August 3rd. On August 2nd, Friday afternoon, I met with him, and I offered to match the 15% deal that the IAM made, and he rejected that offer. Now, what I did after I left that meeting has nothing to do with the ultimate conclusion. If he had been willing to agree to a 15% deal, we would have had the deal. He
that certainly had a
it.
great deal to do with the ultimate conclusion. When you leave 15% on the table, you know full well when you're negotiating and when you're doing a deal like this, we met for 28 hours straight. There were 1 million points to be done.
When I met with you, you had already agreed to 15% with the IAM.
That's not true. We were talking about it. We said there might be a deal made. And we said you should be at that meeting. And if you were there, you would have protected your constituency.
There was an agreed-upon deal Friday
I hate being told that, hey, look, I left you out. You were asked to be there. If I represented a constituency and I knew that I might be left out, I sure as hell be there.
I'm not complaining that I've been left out. I'm complaining that you're asking for a discriminatory package here,
No, you keep talking about being left out. You knew that you should have been at that meeting because we would have got the financing. But that's not the point. The point really is right now.
The point is we are looking to make a deal comparable to the other groups. And in fact, we've already exceeded that by an offer that is $20 million greater than the deal you made with those groups. And I want to say a final point here on this topic. You just signed the deal with the mechanics and the pilots in January. We are only a month and a half away
from
the date that you signed
we signed the deal with them in August. We had a preliminary deal in August. But what's really germane to the subject is that even forgetting that the mechanics, we are paying the mechanics pretty much what the market rate is for the mechanics. We're paying the pilots pretty much what the market rate is for pilots. There's a shortage in both of those areas to some extent. But flight attendants, we have 4,000 applicants for flight attendants that are willing to work for $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year.
I have challenged you that I will, in fact, match the industry standard in this industry for flight attendants. In the same way, the pilots and the mechanics match the industry standard.
But you don't match it because
I do,
there are 4,000 flight attendant applicants that want the job at $1,000 a month, and you're making us pay you $35,000.
You want the flight attendants uniquely to match Continental, where you're willing to have the pilots and the mechanics match the other industry standards.
Not uniquely. I want them to match Pan Am, Easton, Peoples, Continental, all of these now have rates far below what you want me to pay you.
Let me get a break and we'll come back with your phone calls. Our guests are Carl Icahn, Chairman of the Board of TWA, Vicki Frankovich, President of the Independent Federation of Flight Attendants. This is Larry King live on CNN. Thousands and thousands, well, more than that, of Americans. The TWA strike. Our guests are Carl Icahn, the Chairman of the Board, and Vicki Frankovich, President of the Independent Federation of Flight Attendants. These two, by a stroke of the word here, could end this. Maybe it'll happen. We'll grab some phone calls along the way and intersperse questions as well. Long Island, New York. Hello.
Yeah, hi, Larry.
Hi.
This is not a dispute between an employer and an employee. This is an American dispute between union and Wall Street raiders. A man in 2 months takes over an airline, wheels and deals it, and puts a whole airline out of business.
Rather than a comment like, hold on, I'd appreciate a question.
Yes. What are we going to do when we lose the farmers and we lose the labor?
No. Do you have a question for... No, that's more speech. I'd rather have questions than speeches. Panama City, Florida. Hello.
Yes, Larry. Great show. Quick one here. How can Ms. Frankovich and her union solicit public support when flight attendants make much more than the U.S. median income? I consider the salaries they receive great in relationship to their training and skills required. vis-a-vis, for example, 4 years of college for a nurse, teacher, accountant, or other certified individual?
I overpaid, Vicki.
I certainly do not believe that we are overpaid. The skills required for our job are very, very important, and I think such situations as the recent hijacking of Flight 847 this last summer is a very graphic, dramatic illustration of the skills required in the performance of this job.
To Tulsa, Oklahoma, hello.
Yes, I'm the executive of a major oil company in the United States, and when I have to fly as a business traveler, we support the airlines, and I think we are the people that keep them flying to a lot of places. When I tell my secretary I have to go overseas, I don't ask what it costs. I fly first class. I'm privileged to do that, and we support the airlines. We want experienced airline attendants. I'm very familiar with murders because we've been through this problem, and I feel like if I were to treat women the way I understand Mr. Icahn is, I would have so many discrimination cases against me, I'd be out of business.
All right, Carl, let's address that, the charge of sexism.
Well, you know, I think it's presumptuous to say that you heard I treat women in a certain way. I would tell you that I have, that what has been said about me is, talking about breadwinners, I keep repeating this, that I've never said that, and in fact, my mother supported my family when I grew up. And you like to fly first class, and that's fine. But what happens when TWA goes to Chapter 11? Are you going to support us? Are you going to send money from your oil company to support TWA? Did you help Eastern Airlines when it went Chapter 11? You like us to pay all these prices, but yet do you, with your oil company, loan us money or give us money?
Vicki, did you charge Carl with being sexist?
Not only did I charge him, I have gone to the EEOC and filed a complaint there, and we also have a federal court case pending right now in Kansas City, where we charge that we are now in a bad faith bargaining strike, and that part of the reason for that is Mr. Icahn's attitude and comments about women.
Aren't there male flight attendants?
Yes, there are. 15% of our workforce is men.
Carl, to your knowledge, did you say anything that...
I don't know anything I said. And I think that, you know, if we are going to bring this to a point of personalities, I think that is getting to a level that I just don't want to dignify. The question here is that TWA must exist, that we must have wage cuts. We're cutting all throughout the system. We have cut and cut and cut. The pilots have given us more work rules. We are talking to the machinists about more ways to increase productivity. It is not just the flight attendants. TWA is a valuable property, and I'm going to see, hopefully, that we're going to become profitable and remain alive.
Have executives taken cuts, too?
Yes.
Okay,
executives taken 14%, and many of them have been laid off. Many have actually been laid off, and there's nothing we can do about it. We must keep the airline alive, or we're going to perish, or have to break it up.
Reston, Virginia, hello.
Hello, and losing $1.36 million a day at the projected rate that was quoted earlier in the show, is Ms. Frankovich and the rest of the rank and file at TWA willing to win this battle and ultimately possibly lose the war and end up like Charlie Bryan and Eastern did, whereas Frank Lorenzo came in and got the company, and it'll probably end up as a low-cost carrier anyway?
Well, I think the problem for us is that we are in a battle that is not of our making, and we went far beyond what we ever had intended to do in order to try to stop this fight. It is Mr. Icahn's intransigence that leaves us in this impossible position.
All right, forgetting that, though, Vicki, his question is, let's say that were true even, for argument's sake. Are you in danger of winning the battle and losing the war? So let's say you win, Carl can't make it, and you suddenly become a out-of-work employee who lost the job on a principle.
Well, in fact, the industry analysts indicate that with the amount of money that Mr. Icahn has borrowed right now, this corporation will survive this strike.
Carl?
I think the point really is that not a question will we survive the strike because I borrowed the money. I did a great deal to borrow that money. I put my reputation on the line to borrow the money, but I am not going to see this company keep losing and losing until we use up the money we borrowed. I think I'm too intelligent a businessman for that. And what I've said, and what I continue to say is that Ms. Frankovich has brought her union into a no-win situation. Because even if she won, and I don't think she will win, I think that she will not, I think almost 100% that she will win. But if she does win, the point is that I am going to sell this airline. I'm going to break it up, or I'm going to sell it as a thing. And I really want not to do that. I want to see the airline survive. I want to see us become profitable. Ms. Frankovich has said, I don't care. If I go down in flames, I'll take you down in flames with me. That's what she told me.
Carl, if things are bad, why did you buy Ozark?
Well, now, Ozark is going to make us much more profitable because Ozark strengthens our St. Louis hub tremendously. Before, you had two losing airlines domestically in the St. Louis hub, two failing airlines. Now, together, we are going to now be a competitor against Northwest hub in Minneapolis and against the Chicago United's hub in Chicago. We now are going to be much more competitive. We're going to be much more profitable because of Ozark.
Do you think with 50...
This is something, by the way, that TWA wanted to do for the last 5 years.
Larry, if I may, I want to point out that Ozark is a good example of the situation we're in. He paid $240 million for Ozark, and he's asking $300 million in concessions from the flight attendants alone. He's essentially asking us to go out and buy Ozark. And I think people ought to understand the magnitude of the demands that he's making. That's an absurdity.
Now, that's an absurdity. The $300 million we're going to get from you, you're not giving me a check for. The money that we could pay for Ozark, we have. I mean, that's almost like saying you're a poor farmer and your roof is leaking, and you go and spend money to fix your roof, and then maybe your daughter, who's a bit spoiled, says to you, or you're somebody who works for you, says to you, well, why did you spend money to fix your leaking roof? Why don't you give me the money? I mean, our roof is leaking, and you're saying to us, don't spend the money to fix up the roof. Don't go buy Ozark, but give us the money.
Vicki,
I think the answer is to stop the bleeding right now by settling this strike, accepting the concessions we're offering, and putting the money that's being lost every day in this strike back into the corporation.
Can we settle the wage thing now? Will you take a 16% cut, Vicki?
It's going to be very difficult for us, Larry, but we are willing to negotiate to try to find a resolution.
Carl, would you go 16% on the pay?
I think, Larry, you're really missing it. It's the work rules, not the pay.
Well, but I'm trying to get the pay taken care of so we can just concentrate on work rules.
I don't think this
How
is
about 16% to both of you? Come on. How about it? We're both here. 16%, we can put that away.
Tell him to get off the work rules. There's something we can talk about here.
It'll help the mediator tomorrow. Our guests are called. While they think about that, we'll feel like a quiz show. Will they go on or will they not? Carl Icahn is our guest, chairman of the board of TWA, and Vicki Frankovich, the president of the Independent Federation of Flight Attendants. Don Farmer, Chris Curl will be back at the top of the hour. Later on radio, we're going to have a major debate on the postal service in this country. And we'll be right back with more phone calls after this.
Your face might never age in a world sealed away from ultraviolet light. Here you'd be safe from those damaging rays that can age every day, can even cause skin cancer. But you can't live sealed away. That's why there's Youth Guard Moisturizer with PABA, which can help prevent early lines and wrinkles, even help reduce the risk of skin cancer, leaves your skin softer, younger looking. Youth Guard, the moisturizer with extra protection.
The doctor said I could take Anacin 3 for my headaches. It's 100% aspirin-free.
That's right, 100% aspirin-free. And Anacin 3 tablets have a protective coating for easier swallowing.
The same aspirin-free medicine, acetaminophen, as Tylenol. But unlike Tylenol tablets with no coating, Anacin 3 adds a protective coating for easier swallowing. And the same aspirin-free acetaminophen.
Anacin 3 worked fast. Take 3. Anacin 3.
Now new coated caplets, too.
This is CNN, a proud sponsor of the Goodwill Games, Moscow 1986.
Hi, I'm Les Schneider, owner of the Jeweler's Bench, a special kind of jewelry store. Special because we have one of the largest selections of diamonds and gemstones in the Kansas City area. We're always turning beautiful gems into beautiful jewelry. We can repair your jewelry, remount your diamonds, and create exciting designs right in our own store. And we're always having sales like our current 40% off on all engagement rings and bridal sets. The Jeweler's Bench, that special store, 7405 North Oak Traffic Way in Gladstone.
For 48 years, thousands of college athletes from all over America have come to Kansas City with the dream of playing for the championship of America's oldest basketball tournament. The NAIA National Championships. Over 3 million fans have enjoyed the color and pageantry. But beyond that, it's college athletes playing their hearts out. The NAIA College Basketball, the way it was meant to be. NAIA National Championships, March 12th through 18th at Kemper Arena. Sponsored by Pizza Hut and Eastern Airlines. Tickets at all Cats outlets.
This is Larry King Live with Carl Icahn and Vicki Frankovich.
79, the customer service agents have had approximately 35% taken away from them, from their pay. They put in approximately 60% more passenger service contact versus dead time that the flight attendants put in. We continue to work. We want the airline to grow. We don't go out on strike. Now, with Vicki's 44% pay increase that the flight attendants have taken in the past 6 years, why are they worried about giving up 17%? They work approximately 9 months out of the year, not 12 months. They do not work 80 full productive hours every 2 weeks. Why not do a cross-utilization where they work 3 months as flight attendants and 3 months as customer service agents on the firing line continually, 40 hours a week, 4 weeks a month?
Becky?
Well, first off, it is incorrect to say that we don't work 12 months a year. We do work 12 months a year. We work approximately 60 hours a week. All of that time is not in the air, but that is only because of the nature of the job. You have to land flights, you have to wait for flights to take off, you have to wait for equipment to turn around. That time is time spent on the job. Whether or not it is time with customers, it is nonetheless time when you are away from home, you are not with your children, you are on the job. Beyond that, I don't at all question the fact that a customer service agent has a very difficult job, and question the fact that you should, in fact, have received increases during this time. I agree that you should, but I don't think that that should mean that, in fact, we should not likewise be paid properly.
But wait, that's the point.
Increases over the period in order to bring us up to what the wage rate in the industry was. That's the reason that we were able to accomplish that increase.
Carl?
But that's the real point. One minute, Ms. Frankovich keeps saying that she's been signaled out. Now, the customer service agents have not gotten increases. She's gotten 40% increases in the last 5 years, and now she says we're signaling her out because we only cut the service agents 14%, and we're asking 17%. The flight attendants over the last 5 years have gotten 40% increases. And the real point here is that I think is being missed is that we have to compete with other airlines where flight attendants are working for $1,000 a month, and you can get all the flight attendants you want at $1,000 a month. I mean, it might sound hard to say, but my question is simply this: if we can get all the flight attendants we want for $1,000 a month, and we're losing $193 million a year, we're losing, as you say, $2 or $3 million a day. Ms. Frankovich is willing to say, hey, go down in flames, we don't care. Now, if you have all those points, we're losing this kind of money. Ms. Frankovich says, go down in flames, we don't care. We can get all the flight attendants we want for $1,000 a month. Why should we pay her $35,000 a year? Why should we pay her $35,000 a year to do a lot less work than we can find flight attendants to work for us at $1,000 a month?
You're not saying,
the whole
Carl,
thing is ludicrous.
that flight attendant is a menial job and that anyone can come in
I am
and
not
do it.
saying that. I'm saying a flight attendant does a good job, and that's fine. It does an important job. But the main point is that there are a group of very willing people that are willing to work. We have 4,000 applicants, more than we can handle, that are willing to do the job for $1,000 a month and take the work rules that Ms. Frankovich finds too onerous. Why, therefore, when we are losing money like we are, that we're fighting for an existence, that our only other alternative would be to sell the airline rather than to go along with this proposal that I have on the table, why, therefore, should we compromise this proposal because Ms. Frankovich says it's unfair?
Well,
we must exist.
The logical alternative is to make a settlement now that is competitive with the industry, and our offer is competitive with the industry. It absolutely is.
It is not. It is not competitive at all. It's
and we're
competitive,
offering you a
possibly,
$12,000 starting
with the
salary
United,
right now.
But even with the United and American,
you're throwing money away today.
It is absolutely not competitive. We are willing to. The deal that we have on the table.
Hold on, don't interrupt.
The deal we have on the table is competitive with. The deal, our proposal is competitive with Eastern, Pan Am, Continental, and Peoples. And even with United and American, that might pay on the two-tier system, they have built up a very large B tier.
Are your agreements with the pilots and the mechanics competitive with Continental and Eastern and Pan Am, or are they not competitive with
I think that our deal with the pilots is getting to be competitive because of the work rules that we keep imposing. But that's not the question.
I will, in
what
fact,
do we have
match
to do?
the same carriers that the IM and Alpha have matched. Dollar for dollar, I will do that.
If you keep comparing yourself to Alpa, you should have been on the meeting August 5th.
I'm comparing myself
You allowed
to the
yourself to be
industry.
cut out of a meeting on August 5th, and you should have been there. At that time, you would have had a competitive deal with those two other unions, and I could have got better financing. You refused to show up. We've asked you and asked you and asked you to come, and so did the other unions. But beside that point, there is no longer a comparison because the airline business has changed, the industry has changed, and our problems have changed.
St.
So
Louis.
let's forget the other
What's quite
unions.
clear is that you are looking for a disproportionate share from this workforce.
If you thought that, you should have showed up at that meeting. But more importantly,
I thought
that
it
is
then
not.
when I offered you the
But more
comparable deal and you
importantly,
rejected it.
that's not clear because I say to you that the pilots are competitive with the marketplace right now. With the work rules we've got from the pilots, they are competitive with the rest of the marketplace.
Are they competitive with Continental?
I feel that the pilots are competitive with most other airlines, and even with the work rules we're getting and the work we're getting from them, I think it's. But we have a deal with the pilots. This is.
And you could have a deal with us today.
All right, let me get a call. St. Louis, hello.
Hi, I'm a new hire from 1986, and my question is mainly to Mr. Icahn. I was rushed to a flight a few days ago, to my first flight, and I mean, I was nervous, and also were the other two flight attendants who went with me. There was three of us, and we went on, and we had 3 minutes before that airplane took off. We could not do any pre-flight with any of the safety equipment. Somebody could have had a heart attack up there, and we had no idea if we had the proper equipment to treat them or to help them with first aid. We also had, no other experience than what we received in training.
Why then did you take the job, sir?
Well, I took the job because I wanted to become a flight attendant, and I would like to make a career out of it. Now I'm locked into payments of $2,000 into a job that I don't want because I can't make a career out of it now, and I have to pay $2,000 for my training. And one other thing, when I was in the door, I checked the L1 door, and it had not been armed. We were in the air, and the door had not even been armed.
Larry, I would like to interject. I really think this is one of the major problems with this attempted operation. Mr. Icahn is indicating he has numerous qualified people operating these flights. It is absolutely incorrect. This is typical of the problem that's going on right now and the threat to the public of trying to fly during this strike.
I would just like to say we've gotten rave reviews concerning all the flight attendants we put on. We've gotten letters from people saying they've been polite, they've been helpful, and they've been great. This is the first time we've even heard something like this from one of the people we hired.
Carl, are you going to
We have been
continue?
asked repeatedly by the new people who seem very excited about their jobs, are we going to replace them? And I promised them that we won't replace them. Obviously, this fellow would like to be replaced. And I'd be willing to make a deal with him to let him leave and not to charge him for his tuition.
What happens with these people if you settle the people you've hired? They keep
I
their
promised them they won't be replaced. And I've gotten calls from them. They're all excited about their jobs. We like them. We promised them they're there, and we've gotten tremendous compliments from the flying public. A lot more than I might add that I've gotten all year.
We also have complaints that are filed with the FAA. We have complaints where crews have been removed because they have been drinking on the flight. There have been numerous safety
Well, I've never
violations.
heard about that. I've never heard about any of these, and I'd like you to enumerate them to me because I have not heard of any of these accusations.
We'll take a break and come right back with Carl Icahn and Vicki Frankovich on Larry King Live following these words. Before we take our next call, a statement from the Airline Pilots Association. The pilots have a contract which precludes them from striking or joining any other strike. They say there's no evidence that any TWA flights are unsafe due to circumstances surrounding the strike at this minute. This year, the pilots have taken a total 35% pay and work rule concessions, combined 25% in straight pay cut. And last year, they took an 11% pay cut. And we have a call from St. Louis. Hello.
Yes, in 1984, Mr. Icahn, we did offer a $28.5 million package when the TWA management was asking for a $33 million package. We offered that. The response was too little, too late. I responded that with Dick Pearson, the president of TWA. He held out the palm of his hand with an index finger in the palm of his hand and said, I am a firm believer, whatever is offered, we accept. Why will you not accept our 15% offer now with the 10% addition in work rule concessions?
Because what went on in 1984 has nothing to do with me. I am certainly no advocate, as you know, of the previous management of this company. What happened, what exists today exists. What is, and what is that we are losing $193 million in 85. We're losing over $125 million this quarter. And for us to exist, we must have concessions and we must be competitive. And there is no reason for an airline that is losing this type of money to pay more than the going rate. But we are willing to pay more than the going rate in order to implement the situation, in order to save the situation. But really, when you really look at this objectively, why should TWA pay more than the going rate when we are losing like this? We lay off. Lee Iacocca is a hero in America, and well, he should be. And he laid off over 40% of the people at Chrysler when he came in there. Why do you say that we should pay more than the going rate for flight attendants when we're bleeding to death here?
Cleveland, Ohio. Hello.
Yes, earlier Ms. Frankovich was asked the question regarding skills that a flight attendant must have. I don't really feel that she answered that, and $35,000 seems like a rather high amount of money. I know myself, a social worker, does not make near that, and I have 6 years of college. I was wondering if precisely what is the educational background and what skills really does one have to have that would warrant that amount of salary?
Vicki?
Let me say that industry salaries, in fact, do dictate certain amounts of wages in certain industries. We are paid comparable to the other employees on this property, the janitorial staff, the cooks, the fleet service, the ramp service, and our skill level requires that we, first and foremost, are responsible for the lives and the safety of the passengers on the airline. We are responsible to ensure that we protect people in the event that they have heart attacks, in the event that there are fires on the aircraft. There are a lot of things that require fast turnaround. In education, the average flight attendant has college education. You are required to have communication skills. You're required to have a poise and a carriage and an ability to have grace under pressure. And those things are marketable skills. Those are things for which you receive your salary. A large number of our flight attendants speak multiple languages, which in the case of the hijacking was a critical factor in helping interface with the hijackers. It's certainly difficult to say on a comparable worth basis what skills rate what kind of salary level. But in terms of the industry, and that's where we are, in fact, at the market rate for flight attendants in this industry, and we are at the market rate for employees.
In fairness, though, you are in an industry that has changed, and it's changed by the fact that the deregulated, others came in, people hired flight attendants at less pay, and if a lot of people choose price of the flight as their reason, then they are flying places today that TWA flew and that Northwest flew and that United flew. They flew for less. They had flight attendants who were paid less. They arrived. They got off the plane and they said, I save money. That's an economic factor you face,
Yes,
right?
that's true, Larry. But in response to that economic factor, we're offering to reduce our salary by 15%. And I want to make one more point. Earlier, Mr. Icahn was talking about the $192 million loss that this carrier suffered this year. I want to point out that, number one, $100 million of that was a non-recurring loss suffered because of the hijacking and suffered because of a $50 million payoff to Frank Lorenzo, as well as a $10 million cost for Mr. Icahn's acquisition of this carrier. He now has $275 million in employee concessions in place. If he accepts our $50 million offer, he will have $325 million in concessions in place. Now, with $325 million in concessions, if you subtract out the $100 million worth of one-time non-recurring loss, we are going to end up with a profit. And if, in fact, the goal is to have a profit, we shouldn't now be in a strike where we're losing money every day. And, in fact, we've already thrown away half of the concessions of the mechanic group just during the course of this 5 days of our strike. And we shouldn't be in a position where you find that we're offering further discounts now to entice people onto these flights during the middle of a strike.
Carl, have they been the only one that have bent in this and you have not? I mean, is this a negotiation that's one-sided? As Vicki just stated that case, it seems that she's the only one that's given concessions in the dispute.
No, we went down to 17% from 22%. We brought that down on Washington and the NMB. We also said to Ms. Frankovich we'd be willing to wait if she would go out to the flight attendants and allow them to decide for themselves if they wanted to take our package. We believe a lot of flight attendants right now have succumbed to peer pressure, and are not crossing, but would like to cross, would like to work, would like to see TWA survive. We said, you know, I said, Vicki, this is a no-win situation for you. You're leading your people over a cliff because one way or another, we're going to come out. We hope to keep TWA alive, and what I've hoped to do, since I've taken it over, I went out and I borrowed all this money, $600 million. People told me it couldn't be done. We couldn't get that money. I got it. We went out and we have a deal with Piedmont that everyone said could not be done. We got Ozark, which they tried to get for 5 years. And now I say, Vicki, I'd like to keep this company alive. People say that I don't want to. I want to. And what we should do is, I believe that the flight attendants want to work for us and would accept this package if you let them. And let's put the package out to them. Let them decide. We said that Thursday night. We'll wait. Let them vote on the 17%. She said, no deal. We won't bring it out to them. We are going to strike. I said, you're taking your people over a cliff, because what's going to happen is this, that when they want to come back, they won't be able to, because once we put those 1,500 people are online, we won't replace them. And number two, and more importantly, it's going to cost us $50 million starting at midnight. You know, as soon as the strike starts, the $50 million that you could give to your flight attendants and give them in buybacks. We said, hey, look, the flight attendants that don't want to work for us, we'll give them up to $25,000 to leave. And that's money that you can give them by allowing them to decide. And she said, no deal. And we said, that money we can save, but once the strike starts, that money is going to be lost. And that money, and she decided not to do it. So we tried to do everything we could to save this situation. And furthermore, it's a no-win situation, because even if she wins, and the only way she could win, obviously, is the mechanics helped her, or the machinists helped her. We told her that even if you win, this is a valuable property. I'm not going to see it bleed to death. And what I'm going to do is sell it. So even if you win, there won't be an airline, because I'll sell this airline, I'll break it up and sell it, or sell it. I've had inquiries now from 3 other airlines to buy this, because we have a very powerful route structure. We have a route system to Europe.
Let me hold you there, Carl.
She can't win either way.
We'll come right back with our remaining moments on this tough issue following these words. A couple more quick calls so we can get them in. Urbana, Illinois. Hello.
Yes, 2 brief questions. With deregulation and the number of airlines in the air, should TWA survive? And to Mr. Icahn, I hope this isn't a nasty question. Are you more concerned with saving TWA or yourself and your investment? Thank you.
I'd like to answer the should TWA survive.
That was for you, Vicki, all right.
My fervent hope is that it does. I've been with this company 17 years. My goal in representing this workforce is to ensure that we have a living wage, that we have working conditions that allow us to protect the public and to have a lifestyle.
But you want the company to make money.
We absolutely want the company to be profitable,